Distance education made a positive impact in the world, especially during the pandemic, where learners needed to acquire education without leaving the comfort of their own homes. Its main purpose is to provide formal and non formal education in the primary, secondary, and tertiary level to learners who cannot attend a traditional school due to social, economic, geographical, physical, financial, or time constraints. Distance education is an alternative educational paradigm where learners are not in face to face contact with teachers. It could also be termed as distributed learning as it could combine different types of media for instructional delivery. It can be provided to a large number of learners through print, radio, television, audio and video CDs, teleconferencing, video conferencing, and computers. Just like in traditional education, management of distance education requires efficient planning, organizing, leading, and controlling of resources and people, including the learners, teachers, parents, and members of government and non government organizations. In managing distance education, the following must be considered. First is the access of learners to the media provided. Media that learners can access must be checked. Print, radio, and television are readily available and inexpensive, while computers are more expensive, hence less available to some. Second is the capability of institutions to produce and distribute media. Third is the pedagogical alignment of media to the specific lesson objectives. The method of lesson presentation must match the kind of subject area. However, to enrich the understanding of learners, redundancy may be utilized. This means teaching the same subject area using various types of media. For example, the lessons that learners may acquire from modules may be supplemented with audiovisual components in television-based instruction. To encourage discussion, learners can ask questions about the lessons learned from earlier types of media experienced during synchronous video conferencing or asynchronous interaction in learning management systems. And last but not the least factor to be considered is the educational philosophy and framework of the institution. An institution could either be institution-centered, person-centered, or community-centered. Institution-centeredness means maximizing the efficiency of the educational process. This is characterized by fixed curricula, course content, teaching strategies, assessment policy, and support services. In this approach, inflexible courses are offered and may be taken by an unlimited number of learners. On the other hand, person-centeredness means emphasizing individual learner qualities and personal significance of the learning experience. In this approach, flexible programs of study and forms of assessment are provided to learners. Lastly, community-centeredness means concentrating on groups of learners in communities to create social action. Its main purpose is to bring changes in the society, social structures, and institutions. What do you think could happen to distance education programs if these factors would not be considered? Do you think the Philippines considered these factors when distance education was implemented during the pandemic? Distance education could be as good or even better than traditional education if conducted properly. The components of distance education management are strategic planning, organizing, budgeting, and monitoring. Strategic planning involves the elaboration of the design for the institution. It must include the institution's beliefs, expectations, long-term goals, and financial plan. The overall point of this process is to identify key success factors and generate strategic options for the institution. This plan may serve as a point of reference when dealing with particular strategic issues as they arise. Organizing involves controlling the organizational structure, course development, production and distribution, instructor management, and student support. The organizational structure in distance education may include the central academic faculties responsible for curriculum development, the department organizing tutorials and other local services provided to students, the production and distribution department of different types of media, and the administration unit covering finance, personnel, and data processing. Course development is the process of translating academic ideas into actual courses of study. This could be handled by academic subject matter specialists. It includes curriculum planning, materials development, and devising pedagogical strategies. On the other hand, production and distribution involves the technical preparation of print, audiovisual, broadcast, and computer-assisted lessons for learner consumption. Instructor management simply means teachers' recruitment, orientation, training, and monitoring. Student support could be defined as the services for learners which complement the learning resources and activities in distance education. The three main functions of student support are cognitive, affective, and systemic. The cognitive function entails supporting and developing learning through the mediation of the standard and uniform elements of course materials and learning resources for individual students. On the other hand, the affective function means providing an environment which supports students, creates commitment, and enhances self-esteem. Lastly, the systemic function includes establishing administrative processes and information management systems which are effective, transparent, and overall student-friendly. Sample support services for students are inquiry, admission and pre-study advisory services, tutoring, guidance and counseling services, assessment of prior learning and credit transfer, study and examination centers, library services, individualized correspondence teaching, record keeping, information management, and other administrative systems which support the development of study skills, program planning, or career development. There are also elements of student support services that must be considered in management of distance education. First is student characteristics. This may be the student's gender, age, employment, disposable income, educational background, geographical situation, special needs, language, culture, and technology connectedness. Second is the course or program demands. This includes the methods of teaching, assessment, and grading. Third is geography. This means the density of population in areas, availability and cost of transportation, and cultural dimensions. Fourth is technological infrastructure. This includes the technologies that students have access to and technologies available to the institution. Next is scale. This includes the volume of students, resources, and activities. And last is management systems. This entails information management, quality assurance, and budget allocation. As a teacher, what form of support did you give to your learners in your past distance education experiences? As a student, what forms of support did you receive when you were enrolled in distance education? Budgeting involves estimating revenue and expenditure of the institution. It also includes the specification of staffing levels, staff costs, and activity levels. Outcomes of distance education must be monitored to identify what is being achieved. A distance education program may be evaluated through evidences like opportunities for access to education and training, completion and dropout rates, quality of learners' outputs, and cost efficiency. Steps to assure quality in distance education are the following. Define approaches used in distance education. What makes it different from traditional education in terms of the role of instructors, course management, resources, and other factors? Set the criteria and focus for evaluating distance education. Design an assessment tool for distance education that is different from traditional education. Evaluation must focus on learner outcomes and attainment, responsiveness to learners, and organizational alignment and support. Identify the frame of reference. Recognize the unique features of distance education to be able to plan and implement an appropriate assessment method. Specify benchmarks and indicators. Clarify levels of effectiveness and performances in distance education. It is not enough to say that an indicator is evident or not evident, but it must be known to what extent it is evident. A distance education program's set of indicators for quality and good practices may be imitated by others. Redefine the site visit. Examine learning environment by conducting interviews, evaluating physical resources, observing instructional delivery, and scanning records. This may be done through email, video or audio conferencing, or the telephone. Define the boundary. Regulate effective functioning of distance education overseas. Collaborate with overseas schools to ensure that the code of practice is followed. Identify the final outcome. Examine performance of distance education learners. And identify the experts who would assess distance education. Indeed, distance education now serves as an efficient way to meet massive educational needs. Despite the physical absence of learners in a traditional learning environment, distance education can push towards the presence of high learning outcomes. The secret is harmonizing the purpose, choices, philosophies, and actions of all stakeholders towards a unifying goal of raising learner achievement. Distance education may not be easy, but remember, for the sake of our learners and the future of our country, it will be worth it.